Women are moving to the front lines. The Joint Chiefs of Staff have lifted the military's ban on women in combat.
But that change won't take place overnight, and not everyone thinks it's a good idea. Ephraim Graham has the story.
It is an historic day for women serving in the military and a stunning turnaround. A unanimous vote by the country's top generals removes the 1994 ban on women serving in direct combat roles.
They've proven themselves time and time again after the last 12 years. And finally, they're going to get the recognition, which is key.
Defense Secretary Leon Panetta plans to accept the Joint Chiefs recommendation today. That means the military will be fully integrated for the first time in U.S. history. Critics say putting men and women together in combat could hurt unit effectiveness, creating distractions and sexual tension. They also say women are not physically able to perform more demanding tasks. Representative Duncan Hunter, an Iraq War veteran, says the move is, quote, totally out of left field. The question you've got to ask yourself every single time you make a change like this is, does it increase the combat effectiveness of the military? I think the answer is no. But advocates for the change point out, women have been serving in direct combat roles for years in Iraq and Afghanistan.
The reality of the battlefield has changed really since the Vietnam era. Just about everyone is serving in a combat situation.
We were taking fire everywhere. I just remember hearing the pings of the bullets going by me and hitting the ground beside me. I shot one guy, saw him fall.
An ABC News poll shows 3/4 of Americans support women in combat. Women currently make up 14% of the military's 1.4 active duty personnel. Veterans say lifting the combat ban makes it possible for females to make the military a lasting career. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
I think this is just a recognition of the modern battlefield. To say that they're front lines anymore when you're dealing with an insurgency is kind of absurd. You know, where's the front line in Afghanistan? You can't clearly define it, and so as a result, anyone serving in the military is already in the front lines in this kind of warfare. So just recognizing that women are already committed to battle, already on the front lines, I think perhaps is overdue. We could take a lesson from the Israeli Defense Force. They've been doing this for years. Well, the president of Egypt is back in the news with more controversial remarks, and what's not being reported is he's actually quoting the Quran. Lee Webb has that story from the CBN newsroom. Lee?
Gordon, Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi says the American media made too much of his remarks about Jews, and he implied the reason was because Jews control the media here. Morsi recently came under fire for calling Jews, quote, bloodsuckers and the descendants of apes and pigs back in 2010. Morsi added that children must be nursed on hatred for Zionists and Jews and all of them who support them. A group of U.S. senators met with Morsi in Egypt last week. Foreign Policy magazine reports Morsi told them the U.S. media is making a big deal of his comments because it's controlled by, quote, certain forces. Democratic Senator Chris Coons was in that meeting. He says Morsi did not use the phrase the Jews, but it was obvious to all the senators in that meeting that that's what he meant. The U.S. has gone ahead with its gift of 4 F-16 fighter jets to Egypt. Fox News reports the jets left the Naval Air Station at Fort Worth, Texas, Tuesday. The U.S. will give more high-tech F-16s along with 200 Abrams tanks to Egypt this year, all part of a foreign aid package. Some members of Congress have said the U.S. should not go ahead with this deal, given Morsi's remarks. Congress has avoided another bitter debate over taxes and spending for now. The U.S. has passed a plan to let the government keep operating for 3 more months before the showdown over federal spending. The Republicans have come up with a new budget plan. They say it will balance the budget in 10 years without tax increases, but it would require more spending cuts than their previous ideas. Democrats say those cuts are too deep and they want more tax hikes. Republicans say the Democrats got more taxes as part of the so-called fiscal cliff deal, and now it's time to focus on spending cuts. You wonder when the Republicans are really going to hold the Democrats' feet to the fire on that issue, though.
Well, I kind of wonder when the deficit is going to hold all our feet to the fire. All our feet to the fire. When you look at it from a deficit standpoint, how long can we continue to borrow? When you start talking $16 trillion, and in just a couple of years, it's going to be $20 trillion. It becomes impossible to pay that back. And so regardless of revenue increases in the form of taxes or spending cuts, specifically to entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and these would not be cuts in benefits, but just delays in are you eligible for that kind of benefit from the federal government. Until we get into that kind of discussion, we're not going to solve the deficit problem. And that's going to be the dominant problem of the next 10 years. And if we're continuing to fight battles on political grounds, is it taxes or is it spending, and start looking at it, we've got a deficit problem, and until we deal with that effectively and immediately, we're all headed to trouble.